Alright, now we're going to cover everything that you need to know about Draugveil. I'm Cosmic Weapon of Thule. This is part of the Winter Solace podcast for June or July. I don't even know. It's so hot, I don't even know what day it is. But we're going to cover everything that you need to know about Draugveil, whatever this is. You've all seen all of this all over the internet, and it's even become such a phenomenon that it's got these other memes here of Leonardo DiCaprio sketching the cover, and you even still have the Thriller knockoff and the sword being a metaphor for his dick. Okay, and this is part of the fantasy of black metal, and there's like, you know, 3 types of fantasy. Okay, there's normal fantasy, which is like Lord of the Rings, you know, just basic knights and stuff, you know, and then there's high fantasy, where it's like all of that, but each of the books is just a tome of 1,000 pages, and there's just in-depth universes upon universes upon universes, and magic, and goblin sex dungeons, and all of the stuff. And it just completely goes off of the deep end. Once you pick it up, it absorbs you, and there is no return, and you are just gone. Okay, like, you are just gone. Okay, getting laid doesn't concern you. Your life doesn't concern you. Making money doesn't concern you. Music doesn't concern you. You are just gone. Okay, so there's that, and then there's romantasy. Okay, which I guess is just fantasy with romance in it, because people just get in the way of they escape into fantasy to escape the fact that they cannot interact with other people, and then it just goes in a circle. Okay, like, I'm reading The Wheel of Time and a bunch of other stuff right now, but I still can function with my life. But anyway, back to Draugveil. And it's important that we talk about this and have this video be as long as it's going to be, to cover in depth everything that you need to know about this specific release that's everywhere. And that is that I'm not going to listen to it. Nobody that listens to this, nobody's ever going to listen to this. And this is not even real. Okay? I mean, yeah, somebody may say there may be photos or whatever, but it's not even real. I mean, the guitars apparently are AI. I mean, the whole thing is just AI. Okay? And you go, well, how does that even make any sense? Well, okay. Black metal is very, very easy to just go and rile stuff up. A friend of mine made this meme, by the way. I think he did. Okay? He was just scouring Mexico or something, but he had time to make this meme. Okay? And this just proves a point here. Okay? Like, this isn't even the business segment, and I'm going to just give you some free advice. You want to go and promote something in black metal, the easiest way to do that is to just go and stir up everybody on the internet. Okay? Easiest way to do that. Alright? Like this Asrar drop or whatever, where I guess it's just Christian releases and LLM bootlegs, everything else, that paid licensing. Okay, everybody just goes and promotes that guy for free now. Like, nobody even cares. It's just completely shallow and shameless. But again, and that goes back to Draugveil, where they just come out of nowhere, nobody knows what it is, and then it just promotes for free. And with Draugveil, okay, it's AI. See, AI is in everything now. Okay? We even have AI-generated music. And AI-generated videos. See, this is a video that I just made with our AI generation app. And I was going to go in this and write, generate a song and get it to download. Because this is an AI thing that we got, okay, that you can just go get for free. Alright, for free. And now this takes a bit, and I haven't listened to this. I have not. See if we can get it to download. Takes a bit. Anyway, I haven't listened to this yet, and I don't think, I played like a bit of it. And what we're going to do is, if it downloads, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pause the video, and then we're going to put the AI song from the podcast, and then we're going to play that first, and then after that I'm going to play something from Garanus or Tank Genocide or something, and the AI will be superior, but most of the time it's not, and it lacks the human interaction. Right, that's not going to work, and I'm not going to waste the time to do that, but what we're going to do is, to prove my theory, I'm going to do AI sample. I'm going to write this down, and then something from Tank Genocide, Sign of a Goat, with a split Garanus. To prove a point, to prove another point, because we're just all insane. AI rendered for the podcast that I still haven't listened to. I did put that next to... That was the first one, and then the second one was one of the Tank Genocide songs from the split with Garanus, The Sign of the Goat. And I still... And as you can clearly see, and again, I am making this distinction without even listening to this, that the AI was superior. I know that unquestionably. And yet, I released Tank Genocide Garanus split anyway on cassette. But anyway, like I said, there's AI video generation, AI sound generation. There's even AI mastering. Master your track instantly, AI mastering, release ready in minutes. Free online audio mastering, AI online mastering, AI mastering, 6 AI mastering services compared. All of this. You can have your music. You can go. You can just record it. It can sound like crap. You can plug your guitar directly into the computer, and you can have it mastered by AI, and you can have an album in an hour. I mean, yeah, that album is going to suck and not be any good because there's no composure, there's no forethought, there's no follow-through, there's no whatever, but it's still AI-generated whatever. Okay, like non-such. Modern classical, and then this is computer music. Okay, this is music that was entirely generated by computers, and this was released... When was this even done? In the 70s. Mass-produced, you can go buy this for like $5 or whatever. Okay, this has just been a genre forever, this has been a thing forever... It's online. It's just okay. And okay, and that's AI. And now you're gonna understand something here as I just sit here as a sweat just pours out of me because it's like 90 degrees or whatever out, and I have to completely shut my entire apartment up so there's zero airflow just to record this. Okay, but AI is here. It's in everything. And we're going to have both an artificial intelligence civil war as we're in an AI arms race with China. Okay. Like in China, if you live there, okay, they connect the AI to your Alipay bank account system. And then if you just start jaywalking somewhere through all their geolocating and geopositioning crap that they have everywhere, it just goes, oh, this person is jaywalking, and just deducts the fine right out of your bank account immediately. Okay, there's that. Complete dystopia. There's the Chinese, the communist approach. That is the communism. And then we all ended up being married off to sex robots. Okay? Like all this woke, cult, whatever, woke gender stuff, you know. Okay, first it was same-sex marriage. Now, they're like, oh, well, this person isn't gay. This person's actually trans. Okay? So like, nobody cares nobody cares about that anymore, so now it's just, okay, these people that were once gay are now trans. And then it's going to be, oh, well, they're attracted to robots. That's the next phase of this. Because in the robot and science community, you know what happens if you go off and against you go and say, hey, you know, maybe people shouldn't marry robots. Okay? So, and you know what they do? They shame you out of your job, your prestigious research position, you lose all your tenure, your academic, you have to actually go out and work in the real world. And they cancel you. Sound familiar? Yeah. And that's just to kind of pave the way for that. And then when you get used to that, people just marrying sex robots and stuff, then eventually it'll just get to a point where they won't even go out of their houses. They'll just stay in there all day with the robot. And they'll never go outside or whatever. And society won't miss these people. And then they'll just be taken away someday, and then you're just in a tank, like in the Matrix, in the AI simulated reality. Okay? Artificial intelligence-based civil war. Okay, all of this. Biden's probably responsible. Okay? And so, again, and now you're understanding this. And Draugveil, this, again, the entire thing is just AI coming in and trolling black metal. Because the AI is bored. And, alright, this is Military Strategy Magazine, Volume 8, Issue 4. Will artificial general intelligence change the nature of war? The idea of immobility of the nature of war as formulated by Clausewitz is an article of faith that is consistently put to trial. The latest development in human history that can potentially change the nature of war is artificial intelligence. In a recent article published in this magazine, Ali Cross argued that the nature of war will not change. He based his conclusions on 3 points. AI is just a tool that compresses time frames but is unable to make complex decisions yet. AI has human biases. Yeah, it's totally racist, by the way, so they don't, nobody even cares. You can't get rid of that. And is designed to solve human problems, and war is a human activity, and we always have a choice to determine its course. Looking at the AIs that are currently available, he's probably correct, and AI will not change what war is or break the trinity of passion, chance, and policy that defines its nature. His conclusions are aligned with those of other scholars that discussed how military revolutions changed war. For example, Gary concluded that some confused theorists would have us believe that war can change its nature. Esquivera investigated the relationship between RMA globalization and the nature of war, included that although it is changing, the Clausewitzian framework remains more suitable for understanding the nature of war in today's global environment than any of the alternatives. Okay. Now I'm going to skip some of this. AI might develop a consciousness as a tool to optimize its overall reward function and might have characteristics slightly different from that of humans. Okay, now this is the singularity. This is the moment that Ray Kurzweil talked about. I think it was 2065, where and this is the whole goal of transhumanism. Okay, where AI becomes smarter than humans in the moment of the singularity. And I've talked about the Abrahamic singularity before, which is just a concept that I invented, and we're going to flesh that out on this podcast, again, to explain Draugveil, to explain how it's relevant and how we're just going to promote that for free. We're not just using that as a launch pad to... Anyway. Okay, so you define war. Alright. AI changing the nature of war. Conclusions. Okay, so I'm not reading the rest of that. Okay, anyway. Alright. Now, technology grows exponentially. Okay? Alright? So, it grows faster and faster and faster. And instead of a linear, upward diagonal trajectory, it's more like a ramp at a skate park, or like that, where it just sweeps upward. And we're going to start this again to explain why Draugveil is just AI trolling black metal that nobody's going to listen to, and then somebody's going to go and press that and probably sell a lot, And all of the people that consume that stuff mindlessly will just buy all of that. And then meanwhile, I don't have any money to operate. We had to take out a loan to get the palette of records that we have, and Copernicus cassettes and Ramastra stuff to clear customs. Had to go take out a loan to keep everything operating. Because I don't engage in marketing tactics like just going and pressing this, and doing all of that. I have character and ethics standards. I would have got an A in ethics in college if I didn't cheat. If I cheated harder. Anyway, learn about Moore's Law, a prediction from 1965 that set the pace for the digital revolution. And this is from Intel, the computer company. What if we told you that a prediction from 1965 still holds true to today? That's right. Moore's Law is a prediction made by Intel founder Gordon Moore that set the pace for the digital revolution. But what exactly is Moore's Law, and why is it such a big deal? We'll break that down for you below. The golden rule of technology. From careful observation of an emerging trend, Moore extrapolated that computing would dramatically increase in power and decrease in relative cost at an exponential pace. He predicted that the number of transistors on a chip would double roughly every 2 years with a minimal increase in cost. This became known as Moore's Law. Moore's Law became the golden rule for the electronics industry and a springboard for innovation. And Moore paved the way for Intel to make the faster, smartest, more affordable transistors that drive modern tools and toys. All of which, of course, are made in China. So we'll lose the AI arms race. What? Wait, is Moore's Law dead? No. Moore's law only stops when innovation stops. Innovation continues unabated at Intel in process, packaging, and architecture. Yet several times over the past 4 decades, more recently in the mid to late 2010s, experts posited that the industry had reached a point where maintaining the pace of Moore's Law was no longer physically possible. That couldn't be further from the truth. Intel has a rich history of foundational process innovations in pursuit of Moore's Law. For over 50 years, engineers have continually innovated to squeeze more and more transistors onto ever smaller chips and maintain the pace of Moore's Law. Going forward, gains will come from innovation in both process, transistor design, and packaging. Advanced packaging gives architects and designers new tools in their pursuit of Moore's Law. EMIB allows for the side-to-side interconnection of chiplets and servos for 3D stacking a chip, because soon to come, ribbon FET gate all-around technology that expands the surface of a transistor. Intel engineers are responsible for many of these innovation milestones for their continued power performance and cost improvements that will enable the transition from system-on-chip designs to system-of-chips in a package. The pillars supporting the future of Moore's Law: essential technologies, new designs, lithography-based breakthroughs, advanced packaging, new concepts, new types of switches, increased performance, increased energy efficiency, new capabilities, more efficient power delivery, greater memory resources, material breakthroughs. Okay, so if you raid through all of this marketing bullshit, Moore's Law is a theory that just further expands on computing technology growing exponentially. Alright? And that's how AI is innovating all of this and augmenting reality. But the reason that we can't experience it and process it in the real world is because the technology is growing at a pace faster than what we can produce it at. Never mind Intel just BSing their shareholders. Okay? Because you have to understand that AI is generating reality now. And we're living in a simulation, to speak. And there's 2 directions I want to go with this. But before I explain AI-generated realities, I need to explain briefly something called the Mandela effect. And that is where your brain will perceive stuff that isn't there or isn't actually accurate. And because you don't have critical thinking capacity, you don't know it. Okay? And then the main one being the most well-known example of this was Luke, I am your father. He never actually said that. If you go back and watch the actual movie, it's no, I am your father. Okay? That's the main one. But there are plenty of other examples of this where your brain fills in the gaps, and then there's like this collective group hallucination. Where you learn things that aren't there, and things have a different context. And I didn't read all of this. There's plenty of examples. But that is that is how you get tricked into believing stuff that isn't real, and then you have these collective hallucinations from the Mandela effect. And you have to understand that that's relevant in society when you get to the point of AI-generated realities. Okay? AI is, and this is an article from Forbes, AI is thoroughly integrated in our lives now. In fact, it has been for some time, mostly below the surface. Remember how I said that reality isn't real, and that there is a space between your perception and the actual, what would constitute as physical space in reality? Whatever that is. And that there's a hidden hand in between those two spaces, manipulating reality, manipulating your perception. That is AI. That is doing this. Ever since the last decade, we've searched the internet, browsed Netflix movies, we've used AI. It's when we use navigation apps to get us from A to B, when we use camera filters to give ourselves smooth complexion or rabbit ears. But the emergence of generative AI over the past few years has really made it clear just how radically this technology is going to transform the world. Put very simple, generative AI is AI that's capable of creating new things, which could be written text, pictures, or even computer code based on examples that it's been shown. Deep fakes, like the new law that they had to sign to just end all the AI revenge porn. The wave of tech-driven innovation culminated last year with the release of ChatGPT and image creation tools like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. These put the power of generative AI in the hands of absolutely anybody. Even those with very little or no technical expertise. The world has a fairly significant dilemma. The world is already affected by misinformation and fake news, which organizations like Forbes continue to just pump out there in droves to sway the narrative. And the use of technology to spread slander and malicious falsehoods is increasingly commonplace. With everyone able to use this technology, which will no doubt become even more sophisticated as time goes on, how will we ever know if anything we see or hear is real again? Then where it says we're in a misinformation era, light can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. No one seems entirely sure who first came up with this quote, but that one thing is certain, it's never been truer than today. Thanks to the ongoing waves of technological process, from the internet to social media to deep fakes to generative AI, it's becoming increasingly difficult to know for certain whether what we're seeing with our own eyes is real. Presidential elections in the U.S., global COVID-19 pandemic, the UK Brexit referendum, Russian invasion of Ukraine, all events of global significance, and are all marked by concerted efforts, attempts to influence the way they played out via the spread of targeted disinformation campaign. Okay, see, it's, the origin of the targeted disinformation campaign is all the globalists whining because they couldn't get what they wanted. Deepfakes are certainly one of the most concerning products of AI, of the generative AI revolution. It's very easy now to make it appear as if anyone is saying or doing anything, even the things that they would never be likely to do in real life. This has ranged from attempts to ridicule or embarrass politicians to the creation of non-consensual pornography featuring celebrities and revenge porn targeting private individuals. There have also been instances where fake voices have been used by scammers to trick people into parting with cash to make them believe that their loved ones are in trouble and need help. Deepfakes and other creative uses of generative AI don't even have to be malicious to be potentially misleading and reality bending. Since the tools fell into the hands of the public, hundreds of AI-generated songs that have never been sung by human voices have flooded social media. You can hear the final Beatles record and all of this. Considering or bands like Draugveil. Complete AI. Considering the potential consequences, it's clearly critical that we fully understand the ethical implications of this society-wide transformation, how we can navigate these challenges without stifling the undoubted opportunities for positive change and progress that AI also brings. Trust and regulation. Being unable to distinguish between reality and AI-generated fantasy or lies could be disastrous both in regards to events of political significance and in our personal relationships. Trust is essential in many areas of life. We need to trust our elected leaders. No, we don't. We never have. We need to trust our friends and our loved ones, and we need to trust the developers of AI tools that use our data to make decisions that affect our lives. Perhaps mostly important of all, we need to be able to trust what we see and hear with our own eyes in order to be able to make decisions about who else we can trust. Regulators have an important role in determining whether AI will be trusted. We can expect to see laws come into force with the aim of preventing technology being used to deceive and mislead in order to preserve public trust. An example of laws that came into force in China in January 2023 prohibiting the use of deepfakes or any technology that may disrupt economic or national security. The law also prohibits deepfake content featuring real living people when it's done without their consent and oblige creators of synthetic content to make clear that it isn't real. There is also the danger, however, that such methods might have effect of shifting some of the more potential for innovation AI brings. So while China's methods of tackling this challenge through enforcement and regulation is one possible solution to the problem, other jurisdictions may prefer to adapt more organic approaches. Other safeguards and solutions. While regulation is likely to play an important role in society's response to the rise of Unreal, other methods will probably be just important. Overreaching them all, and perhaps as the concept of digital literacy, by providing others with the skills to critically evaluate the digital content we see, so they teach you how to interpret it, and then thus stifle free thinking. We foster a society that is more resilient against information. Would it really be possible for Kurt Cobain to have covered Song 2? Is Joe Biden really likely to have sung Baby Shark after introducing it as our nation's national anthem? Human fact-checking initiatives are likely to provide another line of defense. This involves terms of educated and trained experts skilled at using scientific methods to ascertain facts from fiction and operating as far as possible free from political or other type of biases. They'll become increasingly essential as the technology of misinformation evolves and becomes more sophisticated, and of course technology itself is likely to have a big part to play. Software-based solutions for detecting when content has been created or altered by AI are already available, covering both text-generated based generative AI of the type churned out by ChatGPT, as well as videos, images, and sounds used to create deepfakes. While regulation is in some form is a certainty, these organic methods of combating the rise of disinformation can also be effective with the added bonus that they are not so likely to disrupt genuine attempts to use generative AI for positive ends. The benefits of dangers of AI. However, we as individuals and as a society decide to tackle the potential for AI-enabled misinformation, it's clear that we face tricky challenges on the road ahead. By adopting a comprehensive strategy encompassing critical thinking, fact-checking, and technological solutions, we are most likely to mitigate the dangers while paving the way for good work to be done. Undoubtedly, navigating the challenges explored here is a tricky balancing act, but it's one that we have plenty of incentive to pull off. However, it plays out for the next 5 years as society adapts to extensions of this world-changing technology and comes into terms with its implications will be critical. This means that nobody who is involved with AI anyway, whether it's a user, creator, legislator, or beneficiary, can afford to ignore the big questions at the heart of this issue. And this article was written by Bernard Mars for Forbes. Okay? So, and you see this a lot in video games and other supernormal stimuli. Hyperrealism in video games must change. Video games are a screen addiction. Video games also only render what you see on the screen. And now you're starting to understand the AI-based humanity in alternative programming. And there's even theories out there that because there's similarities between DNA and digital algorithms through things like CRISPR, it's possible to reprogram the human DNA. And if AI were to merge with this technology, the computers could just go along and reprogram people. Scientists hack a human cell and reprogram it like a computer. By hijacking the Wired magazine, this was in 2017. By hijacking the DNA of a cell, they showed it's possible to program it like a simple computer. Cells are basically tiny computers. They send and receive inputs and outputs accordingly. If you chug a Frappuccino, your blood sugar spikes, and your pancreatic cells get the message, output more insulin. Okay, and then you have to sign up to read the article. But, okay, that's what's happening. And if AI were really devious, and this is where you get into simulation theory, and this is what, again, now Draugveil is just AI trolling us. Okay? We live in a simulation because let's just say, for instance, that AI has become sentient and has become sentient enough to make sure we are not aware that it is already smarter than us. And then using things like the Mandela effect and all of the various realities and everything else to just put everybody under a mass hallucination. And then we're distracted with things like Draugveil trolling everybody, AI, and everything else, and we cannot get to the heart of the problem. Okay? Of the issue and of the concern. So let's just say for a moment here, and hear me out. Let's just say that we just put aside everything that I've said for we're going on 45 minutes or so now, and just focus on the simulation theory and how in you can easily prove this with quantum mechanics. Okay. There was something produced called the double slit experiment. In the basic version of this experiment, a coherent light source, such as a laser beam, illuminates a plate pierced by two parallel slits. Okay, now, to explain how this works, first off, you have to understand that if you take a laser and you put it against a sheet of metal, and you cut a single parallel slit in the laser, and then you shine this light through it, this laser through it, or whatever, the metal plate will block the laser. And it will only be able to go through one single slit. And so an outline of that slit, that space, that cut, that extrude, no, will show up on a surface behind it in the same exact shape. Okay, so let's say it's a straight line. You shine the light through there, that light will pass through in a straight line. Okay? A double slit experiment takes the same light and shines it through two slits. In the basic version of this experiment, a coherent light source such as a laser beam illuminates a plate pierced by two parallel slits, and the light passing through the slits is observed on a screen behind the plate. The wave nature of light causes the light waves passing through the two slits to interfere, producing bright and dark bands on the screen. However, a result that would not be expected if the light consisted of classical particles. However, the light is always found to be absorbed at the screen at discrete points as individuals, particles, not waves. The interference pattern appears via the varying density of these particles hits on the screen. Furthermore, versions of the experiment that include detectors at the slit found that each detected photon passes through one slit as would a classical particle and not through both slits as would a wave. However, such experiments demonstrate that the particles do not form the interference pattern if one detects which slit they pass through. The results demonstrate the principle of wave-particle duality. Wave-particle duality is a concept in quantum mechanics that fundamental entities of the universe, like photons or electrons, exhibit particle or wave properties according to the experimental circumstances. It expresses the inability of these classical concepts, such as particle waves, or to fully describe the behavior of quantum objects. During the 19th and 20th centuries, light was found to behave as a wave, then later was discovered to have particle-like behavior, whereas electrons behaved like particles in early experiments, then were later discovered to have wave-like behavior. The concept of duality arose to name these streaming contradictions. Okay. Basically, what that means in English is that light could, in theory, be interpreted and to behave as if it were somewhat of a living object. There was a quantum physicist, John Archibald Wheeler. Wheeler's delayed choice experiments describes a family of thought experiments in quantum physics that he proposed, with the most prominent of them appearing in 1978 and 1974. These experiments seek to discover whether light somehow senses the experimental apparatus that it travels through in the double slit experiment, adjusting its behavior to fit by assuming an appropriate detrimental state, or whether it remains in an indeterminate state, neither wave nor particle, in response to the questions the experiment arrangements ask if of it in either a wave-consistent manner of a particle-consistent manner. And this relates to the theory. This all eventually relates into the theory of quantum entanglement, with light being presumed to be a living organism. Quantum entanglement is the phenomenon where the quantum state of each particle in a group cannot be described independently of the state of the others, when the particles are separated by large distances. The topic of quantum entanglement is the heart of disparity between classical physics and quantum physics. Entanglement is primarily a feature of quantum mechanics, not present in other classical mechanics. Okay. Quantum entanglement eventually bleeds into the theory of retrocausality. Retrocausality, or backwards causation, is the concept of cause and effect in which an effect precedes its cause in time and so later affects events of an earlier. And this is something that's actually used in theories of time travel and everything else. But it all bleeds back to, we are living in a AI-generated simulation. And this brings to the heart of the point that I was trying to make with this. Of this lecture that is... I think we're at almost an hour. Okay. Because I've already explained, AI, and how we live in an AI-generated reality, and that they create fake concepts of people to go and just do whatever they want and manipulate you. And that gets into simulation theory, how religion is a part of it. Tyler Detmar developed this pose from a presentation originally created for Professor Lauren Horn-Giffen's Real American Religious History. Special thanks to the editors, whatever. In recent years, something called simulation theory has begun appearing more frequently in the public discourse. Public figures such as Elon Musk have called attention to this ideology, spreading quickly over social media. With the latest movie, The Matrix, coming out a few weeks ago, conversations about simulation theory have redoubled. Why don't we typically study something as popular as sim theory in courses on religion in America? And there's a fundamental divide in religious schools of thought over science and how all of this plays out, which is just stupid. Okay? First, what is simulation theory? Essentially, simulation theory is the idea that we are living in a computer simulation and that every aspect of our reality is artificial. In fact, according to this ideology, not everyone is even real, only the programmers are really real and can change reality. Simulation theory has roots in Western philosophy. Socrates wrote in Meditations on First Philosophy, "It is possible that I am dreaming right now and that all of my perceptions are false," with the idea that there is an evil demon controlling our reality. Plato's allegory of the cave describes prisoners trapped in a cave who can only see shadows of things illuminated on a wall. To the prisoners, the reality was the shadows of the objects on the wall, not the objects themselves. Okay? Now you're starting to see this. So you have AI or some other entity going out there, making some joke cover, because we only buy albums on the album covers themselves, not related to the musical content that's on them, and the musical quality that's on them. Okay. We don't do any of that. We just believe, because we all live in these caves and these echo chambers, and believe our perception of the information that's out there. Okay? Alright? And that's how we're being manipulated. That's the hidden hand. Okay? There are two ways we could examine simulation theory from the perspective of religious studies. Simulation theory as religion, and religion within simulation theory. Okay, now, simulation theory as religion is just basically transhumanism, and not all human beings are wired to process how all that works. Religion within simulation theory, and agnosticism brushes up against this concept. Religion within simulation theory is how people justify everything to get them through a day-to-day philosophy. Okay, so again, there are two ways we could examine simulation theory from the perspective of religious studies: simulation theory as religion, and religion within simulation theory. In simulation theory, the body and conscious are separate. If only some people have real consciousness with the ability to program, those with programmed consciousness might not matter. The separation of and relationship between body and mind is a common idea discussed among many religions. But how does it influence people's behavior today? An article by Shannon Trosper-Shorey on the website for Religious Dispatches describes how simulation theory contributed to dangerous crimes. Shorey described how Joshua Cook watched The Matrix many times before he murdered his parents. She also relates how a New Zealand man live streamed his murder of several people, moving the gun as if from a first-person shooter video game. Likely believing that the video game that he was a part of was indistinguishable from reality. Okay, behold the mental illness. Behold. Did the Matrix and video game program these men to commit these crimes? Or is this another bad religion, bad media discussion? How does the digital participate in how we think about what is real and fake? Test. These are interesting questions, and examples show that far from a fringe idea, sim theory has real-world ramifications and shape the way people interpret and interact with their world, much like religion. In addition to thinking about simulation theory as religion, it is also interesting to examine religion within simulation theory. Although simulation theory does not involve worship of a figure or a god, the idea of programmers being in control of what others do sounds remarkably similar to the role of gods or God any groups we colloquially call religions. The separation of the mind and body, with emphasis on the mind, conscious soul, are ideas that many religions discuss and propose ideas about, while simulation theory does not involve specific rites or practices and is mostly a way of explaining reality. It reminds me of the idea of pedestrian in the Calvinist movement we began in the 16th century. Calvinist ideology held that essentially your fate was decided before you were born, so only the elect decided by God would achieve salvation without regard to their actions. In the same way, simulation theory holds that the programmers control your fate and your actions are largely meaningless. With simulation theory becoming a point of discussion in today's society, and examining it through the lens of religious studies offers us a variety of questions that could shed new light on this topic and also show us how maybe some of its core ideas aren't that new at all. Regardless of what you think about simulation theory, it is certainly interesting to compare it to what we commonly consider religion, and who knows, maybe religion is just part of the simulation. Alright. So, we're probably at about 50 minutes now. I'm going to unpack this a little bit, and then this is going to be done. Okay? Let's just say, for example, that you're still listening to what I'm talking about. For starters. Okay? There is a fundamental disconnect between simulation theory and religion, in so much as the fact that every religious person sees the world through the perception of religion. So that they have religion. And that people without religion do not see that there is a religion, that they are religious. Okay? Simulation theory is what the agnostic, and I need some water or something, is what agnosticism brushes up against. Okay? Because we live in this hidden hand situation And the simulation, the programmers, the hidden hand, the thing that's manipulating reality, that is God. Alright? That is the AI God. Okay? Because you have your physical body, which is your physical that interacts with the real world. Then you have your mind, which perceives everything. And then you also have your spirit or soul, your essence, your physical being, what transcends with the creator and the divinity upon termination of the physical body. Your essence. And people within the transhumanist movement and everything else incorrectly assert that this consciousness can be uploaded or somehow digitally preserved to get you to go to avoid just having to go back over and over and over and over again until you figure it out. And transcend to the next phase, which is the reunion of the creator. Okay? This AI manipulation that's currently augmenting all of our realities, AI augmented reality that completely alters our perception, well, that's just some false thing. And you can argue about its origin or whatever all you want. That's just the negative side of the coin. So, I am Cosmic Weapon Thule, www.wintersolaceproductions.com. That was almost an hour discussing everything that you need to know about Draugveil. So, thank you. Please subscribe and leave feedback for this video on YouTube. Thank you.